Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Richard Bader. I'm chair of the New York State Bar Association's Law, Youth, and Citizenship Committee, and I teach a career exploration program in law and government.
Good afternoon. I'm Sanders Sowers. I'm a lawyer practicing with a litigation law firm in Columbia, Missouri.
My name is Mike Graffio. I'm a judge. I'm an Alabama Circuit Judge in Birmingham. I hear basic trial level jury trial issues.
So we know who we are. Who are you?
I'm Denny Mokarski.
I'm Kevin Kohler.
I'm Renee Hannon. We're from Maine South High School in Park Ridge, Illinois, and our teachers are Mr. Curra and Mr. Trick.
Here they are.
Thank you. This is Unit 2, Having Framers Create the Constitution. Your question is question number 1. An American historian recently described the ratification debates as one of the greatest and most probing public debates in American history. Do you agree or disagree with her characterization? Why or why not? What was the significance of having the Constitution ratified by the people in special conventions instead of by state legislatures? How would you compare today's debates over the Constitution with those that ranged widely among Americans during the ratification period? You may begin.
On the last day of the Philadelphia Convention, Benjamin Franklin wrote, "I consent to this Constitution because I expect no better, and I am not sure that it is not the best." The product of 4 months of debate and compromise, the Constitution itself provoked even more debate and compromise with its ratification. The contentious debate leading up to the ratification of the Constitution was indeed one of the most probing public debates in American history. It was also one of the most democratic, educational, and influential debates that the American public has ever experienced.
Despite their polarized views, Federalists and Anti-Federalists alike worked to ensure the democratic nature of the ratification debates by creating a well-informed public. Both sides published their arguments in newspapers and pamphlets, encouraging public discussion in taverns and coffee houses. The people debated the important issues of the time, including the power of the central government, the congressional power to tax, and the lack of the Bill of Rights.
Emphasis was placed on the public accessibility of the debate. Not only were numerous publications made available to the people, both Federalists and Anti-Federalists used to announce the people's debate ideas based on their merit, not their authors. For example, Hamilton, Madison, and Jay wrote the Federalist Papers under Publius, while Anti-Federalist Robert Yates and Mercy Lewis Warren wrote under Brutus and the Columbia Patriot, respectively.
Although Federalists and Anti-Federalists agreed to protect the openness of the debate, there were disagreements over the legitimacy of the ratification process itself. Specifically, the drafters purposely designed Article 7 of the Constitution so that special ratifying conventions, not state legislatures, would be used for ratification.
Ratification was more likely under these special conventions because the Constitution significantly reduced the states' rights. The state conventions were also more democratic because the people were able to elect the delegates to represent the interests of their district, legitimizing the Constitution in the eyes of the people.
The greatest similarity between the constitutional debate at the time of ratification and today is the importance of public opinion. For example, just as the Anti-Federalists achieved a Bill of Rights with public support, Americans have pushed the issue of same-sex marriage to the Supreme Court, which will decide the constitutionality of the Defense of Marriage Act in the coming weeks.
In 1787, people debated the validity of the Constitution itself, as well as the implications of its laws. In contrast, today, the Constitution is taken as fact, and issues are debated based on the interpretation of the Constitution. For example, with their Pledge to America plan, Republican congressmen require lawmakers to cite specific constitutional provisions that enable the legislation. In this way, the GOP is embracing a literalist interpretation.
But the Constitution should be an ever-changing document and was intended to be debated and amended to fit the contemporary needs of the people. As criticized by political scientist Larry J. Zavato, the Constitution was drafted over 200 years ago. It has only been amended 27 times in history, and not at all in the past 20 years. Generally, the ratification debate questioned the most basic issues of the Constitution, while today, these issues are accepted as fact.
Overall, democratic conventions, accessible information, and powerful citizens shaped the ratification debate. The people may have been more active in the ratification debates, but the American democratic experiment was also more fragile in 1788 than it is in 2013. The states desperately needed a strong, centralized government to unite and protect themselves from imposing foreign threats.
The arguments of the ratification debate developed the Constitution and shaped the government as it still exists today. And as Thomas Jefferson once said, whenever you do a thing, act as if the whole world is watching. In 1789, the whole world was watching. The successful ratification of the United States Constitution would direct the fate of democracy in the rest of the world. We are now open for questions.
we have questions for you. In what ways, if any, were the ratification debates an example of social contract theory?
Well, for one, after the delegates in Philadelphia finished the Constitution, they immediately sent the document out to the state ratifying conventions. They were sending it back to the people. The social contract is a government by the people, for the people. They were sending it back to the people so they could approve to be, and give their consent to be governed by this government that was just created.
And also, the way the Constitution was ratified was based off of the way that the state Constitution was ratified. For example, the 1776 Constitution, Pennsylvania expanded its franchise 50 to 90% according to historian Colleen Mayer. And in this way, enabled lowered property restrictions for the voters, and some states even abolished property restrictions for the voters. And they take this idea from the earlier state constitutions, so more people are able to vote for their delegates from state ratifying conventions.
In addition, all of the state ratifying conventions were widely observed by the public, and in this way, all citizens could observe the debates and form their own opinions.
Sure. Ratification debate then. How would you compare it to other great debates in American history, such as slavery, civil rights, or current debates over gun control? Debate then, these debates now.
Well, in 1787, like we said, there was more education. People were more open to debate. It was Federalists and Anti-Federalists, although they were very in the heated debate, it was more fair. For example, the Anti-Federalists objected to their name as Anti-Federalists because really they were more the Federalists than Federalists were, more like nationalists. But at one point it was suggested that Federalists call themselves the Washingtonians and the Anti-Federalists call themselves the Shadites, so to make people happier with the debate. You don't really see that today.
I would not argue that this was a fair debate. For example, George Mason said the ratification process was straight down our throats before we could open our mouths. The Anti-Federalists definitely were given the short end of the stick, and Federalists, their opinions and thoughts prevailed.
In comparison to the slavery debates that ranged widely in the mid-19th century, the constitutional debate was not second. George Washington, or not as second, I should say. George Washington lamented shortly after the creation of the Constitution that he was amazed at how such different people were able to come together to create such an amazing document. Slavery was debated by North and South. It was contentious whether to abolish slavery or not, protect the Southern interests or protect the rights of the slaves. There was a greater division during slavery based on racial and essentially moral lines.
I would also argue that the debates of the ratification shared violence with debates such as civil rights and the slavery issue. The first Anti-Federalist essay was published in the Independent Gazetter, and the response essay suggested that the author be tarred and feathered. So clearly we can see that violence is also a continuation in many of the debates in American history.
What criticism of the Constitution by Anti-Federalists seems to be the most valid? Why would you say?
I think one thing that was apparent right when the Anti-Federalist papers first came out, which was written under Brutus, was that the government would be a very distant thing to the people, and that, especially since during in the 1780s, from western Pennsylvania to actually Philadelphia was 4 days of hard travel, and that the people would be so far away cut from the government that they wouldn't actually have a say. I think that's most relevant today. Historian and political scientist Francis Fukuyama, in his book, The Origins of Political History, points out that a huge flaw in the American system is lobbying, and the fact that these corporations and these political interest groups pour so much money into legislation that they serve as an effective veto. This can be seen almost recently. The bill called CISPA is currently, it was just defeated in the Senate, but it was passed in the House of Representatives, and over $85 million was poured into this legislation so that it can be passed. And an actual $1 to $10 ratio was between corporations and the people themselves.
I think the greatest debate was over the Bill of Rights. As George Mason said, there is no Declaration of Rights, and the laws of the general government, being paramount to the laws and the Constitution of the several states, a Declaration of Rights in the separate states are no security. So basically what he was saying was, if the Federalists are arguing that this national government is to be superior, it makes no sense that state governments, which are weaker, should have a Bill of Rights and not the national government.
Well, I would like to disagree with my colleague Jenny, because even though Bill of Rights was an important issue
mentioned Bill of Rights, you mentioned strong central government. Which of the anti-federalist fears do you think has proven to be most justified?
I would think that the anti-federalist desire for a Bill of Rights has been most justified throughout history. The rights in the Bill of Rights have been called upon in court cases ranging all throughout history and in laws in general. And I think that their need for a Bill of Rights was justified despite the protections that the Federalists saw in Article 1, Section 9, including the protection against the suspension of habeas corpus, ex post facto laws, and the military.
I'd like to disagree with Renee and say that the anti-federalist ideas surrounding state sovereignty were the most important. We can see that today with all the issues that are rising in the states, such as gay marriage, marijuana use.
You can briefly conclude.
Marijuana use and just got real punchy. Basically, that devolution is an important aspect that we value today, especially with the recent healthcare bill that was passed, which was originally taken from Massachusetts.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's give you guys a little feedback here. Charles, I thought you did a nice job opening up with a nice Ben Franklin quote. He's always one of my favorite founding fathers. And actually, I think throughout your entire presentation, you had a lot of good quotes from founding fathers, including the George Mason as well. It's very appropriate since we're here on discussion. I thought you guys did a nice job in your opening. Very smooth, very solid. Covered a lot of ground. I think you probably hit on most of the big topics. Maybe a couple of you could have brought up, but for the most part covered it all. I thought that your response to my question came very well. I thought, especially talking about the Bill of Rights and really it wasn't really the Bill of Rights, preventive attraction, really the power of the central government that was really the problem. And so I thought that was great. You know that well. And I really enjoy seeing kind of healthy disagreement amongst the team members here. I mean, this is a debate, and so definitely two sides of all these issues to come more. And so in that respect, I thought it was fantastic.
Concur. I echo this one, my brethren's remarks. I thought your prepared statement was good, but I thought it really shined with your follow-up questions. You had great detail that you added to each of the questions. You listened to each other and you made sure you were building on that. I particularly like the information about the increased suffrage that was allowed in the states, because we needed that in New York too. And the detail about the Federalist Papers and the violence and the barn feathering, examples of CISPA. One thing that last question, which is coming at the tail end, I like what you said about the Bill of Rights being important. I would throw in something about the 14th Amendment, selecting incorporation as the Bill of Rights is how important it was. But you touched on, gave opposing viewpoints that was brought out, and I think that's an important thing to do in this kind of question. Thanks, Jeff.
I thought it was very good. I thought you shined in the paper, as was the question. I certainly agree with that. Thomas Jefferson's one of my favorites, and you brought it back from Ben and Thomas. I thought it was excellent the way you tied that together. And you said, wait, they debated how they're going to debate. I thought that was a great, states versus ratification. Being competitive, in terms of the question I asked, Richard just alluded to it. Boy, they were similar because of the violence, like the votes and civil rights. Unfortunately, I have a very good memory of some of that. Due to my age, but and then it was section. So something like that. Did I?
No, it's fine. Laughing in here.
I thought it was good. Lobbying with CISPA actually too. I forgot he was that high. I thought it was